November 1923. You are standing in line at a bakery in Berlin. The price board behind the counter says 200 billion marks for one loaf of bread. You wait in line for 12 minutes. By the time you get to the front, the baker crosses out the price. He writes 250 billion. You just lost 30% of your purchasing power standing in line for lunch. The woman ahead of you isn't using a wallet. She is pushing a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy milk. This sounds like a dystopian nightmare. It sounds like fiction, but it is a historical fact. It happened in Germany. It happened in Zimbabwe in 2008. It happened in Venezuela in 2018. And it happened in Lebanon just last year. Here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. Currencies are like milk. They have an expiration date. The average lifespan of a fiat currency, paper money not backed by anything, is 27 years. The current US dollar system started in 1971. You do the math. We are living on borrowed time. So when the rules of money change overnight, what actually holds value? When the paper in your wallet becomes just paper, what stops you from starving? I went back through history. I looked at the financial autopsies of 5 different dead empires. I didn't look for theories. I looked for survivors. By the end of this, you will know the exact list of 5 assets that survived total economic collapse. But before we get to the list, you have to understand the trap. Currency collapse isn't random. It is like gravity. It follows a strict mathematical pattern. It happens in 5 stages. Stage 1, the government spends more money than it has. Stage 2, they print new money to cover the bills. Stage 3, that money starts to buy less stuff. Stage 4, panic. People realize the money is bad and try to trade it for anything else. Stage 5, 0, complete collapse. In Germany, the currency lost 98% of its value in 18 months. In Lebanon, the pound went from 500 to the dollar to 89,000 in 4 years. The pattern never changes. The math always wins. So what survives the fire? Asset number 1 is the most obvious, but most people still don't have it. Precious metals, gold and silver. These are the assets that politicians cannot print and central banks cannot ruin. Think of gold like an anchor. When the storm hits the boat, your paper currency might sink, but the anchor doesn't move. During the German collapse, if you held paper money, you were wiped out. You lost everything. 0. But if you held gold, you lost nothing. An ounce of gold bought a suit before the crash. It bought a suit during the crash. And it bought a suit after the crash. The currency changed, the gold stayed the same. We see this in Turkey right now. Inflation is running wild. The LRA is crashing. So what are the people doing? They are buying gold. They know the pattern. Critics hate gold. They say it doesn't pay dividends. They say it's a pet rock. They are missing the point. Gold isn't an investment to make you rich. Gold is insurance to keep you from becoming poor. It works because of scarcity. The government can type $1 trillion into existence on a computer screen in 5 seconds. They cannot type gold into existence. When the supply of paper money explodes, the value of that money drops. Since the supply of gold stays stable, its value relative to the paper goes up. Look at the 2008 financial crisis. At first, gold dropped because people were panic selling everything. But once the dust settled, it shot up 166% in 3 years. Silver did even better. It went up over 400%. It is the ultimate insurance policy against government stupidity. Asset number 2, foreign hard currencies. Sometimes the best way to save your house is to sleep in your neighbor's house. When your local money is dying, the escape hatch is holding someone else's stable money. Let's look at a real example. Beirut, Lebanon, October 2019. Imagine you were a nurse. You worked hard for 10 years. You saved the equivalent of $50,000 in the local bank. The exchange rate was stable. It had been stable for 22 years. You felt safe. Then the peg broke. The government lied. The system cracked. In 2019, the rate was $25,500. By 2025, the rate was $89,000. That $50,000 nest egg sitting in your bank account, it is now worth about $1,000. You lost 98% of your life's work. You are destitute. But your coworker, another nurse doing the same job, she didn't trust the banks. She kept her savings in physical US dollars, stashed outside the system. She maintained 100% of her purchasing power. Was the US dollar magic? No. She could have held Swiss francs. She could have held euros. The specific paper didn't matter. What mattered was that she held a life raft while the ship sank. This isn't just a Lebanon story. This pattern is universal. Look at Zimbabwe. The government told people to use their money. The people said no. The economy dollarized itself. Ordinary people stopped accepting the local scrap paper and started demanding US dollars for bread and milk. Look at Argentina today. You don't buy a house with pesos. You buy it with greenbacks. In Cambodia, you go to an ATM. It spits out Benjamin Franklin's, not local reals. This isn't a government law. It is a survival instinct. When the house is on fire, you run for the exit. Foreign currency is the exit. Asset number 3. This one separates the amateurs from the pros. It sounds crazy. It sounds wrong, but the data proves it. Productive equity stocks. In 2024, the Venezuelan stock market didn't crash. It rose 3,400%. In 2026, the Caracas exchange tripled in 9 trading days. You're probably thinking, wait, the country is falling apart. Why are stock prices exploding? Here's the secret. A stock isn't a lottery ticket. A stock is a claim on real things. A factory, a warehouse full of steel, a fleet of trucks, a plot of land. These things have real value. When the currency becomes trash, the price tag on the factory changes. The factory is still a factory. It just takes more trash money to buy it. The company didn't get more valuable. The money got weaker. But listen closely. This is where people lose their shirts. Not all stocks are safe. Most are death traps. If you own a bakery that only sells bread to locals for worthless currency, you are bankrupt. Your costs go up to buy flour, but your customers are paying you with monopoly money. Your real profit is zero. But what if you own a copper mine? You dig up copper in Venezuela. You pay your workers in cheap local money, but you sell the copper to China for US dollars. Your costs go down. Your revenue stays strong. You actually get richer. This happened in Mexico in 1994. It happened in Asia in 1998. You need companies that export. Domestic companies burn. Exporters survive. So we have gold. We have dollars. We have stocks. These protect your wealth. But they have a fatal flaw. You can't eat a stock certificate. You can't shave a gold bar to buy a haircut. When the banks close their doors forever, you need something else. You need a way to trade for day-to-day survival. There is one specific asset class that took over Europe after World War II. It wasn't money. It wasn't gold. It was something you buy at a gas station. I'll tell you what it is in a second. First, a quick reality check. If you are realizing that your savings account is actually a risk, not a safety net, click subscribe. I don't give you a theory. I give you financial forensics. I show you the autopsies of dead economies so you don't become one. It is free. Ignorance is expensive. Click the button. Okay, back to the list. Asset number 4, consumables and barter goods. When the money dies, commerce doesn't stop. People still need to eat. They still need shoes. They just changed the tool they used to trade. Let's go to Germany. 1945. The war is over. The Reichsmark is worthless litter on the street. Nobody wants it. So what did they use? Cigarettes. Suddenly a pack of smokes was the most powerful currency in Europe. American soldiers bought them. For pennies at the base. They walked outside and traded them for cameras, jewelry, even houses. Why cigarettes? Think about it. They are small. They are portable. Everyone knows what they're worth. And most importantly, they rot slowly. They became the new money. The black markets and train stations didn't accept cash. They accepted tobacco. It followed the laws of economics perfectly. When a new shipment of cigarettes arrived at a camp, prices went up. Inflation, same math, different tool. Fast forward to Venezuela, 2018. In Venezuela, the currency didn't just lose value. It ceased to function. So, the people went back to the Stone Age. Fishers stopped selling fish for money. They traded their catch directly for flour just to feed their kids. Suddenly, the most boring items in your house became the most valuable. Medical supplies, food, water filters, batteries, lighter fluid, even toilet paper. In a normal world, toilet paper is a convenience. In a collapse, it is a medical necessity. If you run out of soap and hygiene products, disease spreads. In a world without working hospitals, an infection is a death sentence. Soap wasn't just clean. It was survival. But there is a trap here, a fatal flaw. Consumables get consumed. You use them up. You can't build a retirement portfolio on aspirin and AA batteries. They are great for surviving a week. They are terrible for surviving a decade. They are tactical, not strategic. So, you need an asset that produces value but cannot be printed away. That brings us to number 5, agricultural land. It is the immobile store of value that produces the one thing humans cannot negotiate on: food. Look at the Great Depression. In the cities, bankers were standing in bread lines wearing expensive suits. They had paper wealth, but they couldn't eat it. But out in the country, farmers were hurting. Sure, they couldn't buy new clothes. They couldn't buy new tractors, but they had chickens. They had orchards. They had dairy cows. The banker had a zero in his bank account. The farmer had an omelet for breakfast. Land produces calories. City real estate produces rent. When the rent is paid and worthless money, the landlord starves, the farmer eats. But before you run out and buy a farm, you need to know the risks, and they are massive. Land has a target on its back. First, it is stuck. You cannot put 50 acres in your pocket and board a plane. If the country becomes unsafe, your wealth is trapped. Look at Zimbabwe in the year 2000. The government decided to seize commercial farms. They didn't buy them. They took them by decree. If you owned a farm, you lost it overnight. No compensation. Total loss. Agricultural output crashed 60%. The value of the land evaporated. Second, the tax man can always find you. You can hide gold in a garden. You can hide crypto on a USB drive. You cannot hide a cornfield. When the government is broke, it will tax land owners into oblivion. You might have plenty of food, but if you can't come up with the cash to pay the property tax, they will take the farm. So, land is powerful, but it is vulnerable. The only safe land is land that exports crops to other countries for hard cash or land held in a corporate structure that is hard to seize. So, we have the survivors. Gold, foreign cash, export stocks, barter goods, farmland. Now, we need to look at the victims. You need to know exactly what goes to zero because if you hold these assets, you don't just lose a little, you lose everything. Item number 1 on the death list, government bonds. This includes treasury notes, municipal bonds, or any fixed income. Here's the logic. A bond is just an IOU. The government promises to pay you back in the future with currency. But if that currency is hyperinflating, they are promising to pay you back in trash. In Germany, people who held government bonds were wiped out. The government paid them back, technically, but the money they received wasn't worth the stamp on the envelope. In Argentina, in 2001, bondholders lost 70% of their value overnight. It isn't a market crash. It is basic math. Being a creditor to a broke government is a suicide mission. Item number 2, savings accounts. This is the saddest one. This is where the grandmothers and the careful savers get slaughtered. If you keep your money in a savings account in a failing currency, you are guaranteed to lose. Look at Lebanon again. If you had money in the bank in 2019, you felt safe. Today, you have lost 98% of that value. The number on the screen didn't change. If you had £1 million, you still have £1 million. But that £1 million was used to buy a house. Now, it buys a tank of gas. The bank didn't steal your money. The inflation stole your purchasing power. History is crystal clear on this. If you hold cash in a dying system, you go to zero. So, where is this happening right now? Because this isn't just history. It is happening today. I am looking at the charts and the warning lights are flashing red in 3 specific places. Warning sign number 1, Iraq. Right now they are in a liquidity crisis. There is no cash. The banks are restricting withdrawals. The dinar is crashing on the black market. People are smuggling money across borders. This is stage 3. The currency starts to slip. Warning sign number 2, Turkey. Citizens are panicked. Gold deposits doubled in 3 months. Inflation is running wild. The people are dumping the LRA and buying metal. This is stage 4, the flight to safety. Warning sign number 3, Lebanon. The collapse is done. 98% loss. The banks are zombies. The money is dead. This is stage 5, total failure. But there is one more stage, a stage that comes after the collapse. And it presents the single greatest wealth transfer opportunity of your lifetime. And now we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the United Clears Throat States of America. The debt clock is ticking. We are sitting on over $35 trillion in debt. That number is too big to understand. It sounds like a made-up number. So, let me put it in terms that actually make sense. As of right now, the US government spends more money paying interest on its debt than it spends on the entire military. Think about that. We spend more to pay off the interest on the national credit card than we spend to defend the country. The defense budget protects the nation. The interest payments protect nothing. They are just the cost of past mistakes. And the bill is coming due. In the 1970s, the US dollar was the only game in town. It was 80% of the world's reserves. Today that number has dropped to 65% and it is falling fast. This isn't new. This is history on repeat. In 1913, the British pound was king. It was the world's reserve currency. Everyone trusted it. Everyone used it. 40 years later, Britain was broke. The pound crashed and the US dollar took its crown. Now the dollar is following the same map. The pattern is visible if you are brave enough to look at it. Here is the brutal truth. Currency collapse isn't a rare disaster. It is the historical norm. It is what usually happens. The average lifespan of a paper currency, money not backed by gold, is roughly 27 years. That is the average. Since 1971, the US dollar has been a pure paper currency. We are over 50 years into a 27-year cycle. We are living on borrowed time. 99% of all currencies that have ever existed in human history have gone to zero. They don't exist anymore. The question isn't if the dollar will fail. The math says it will. The only question is whether you will be holding the bag when it does. You don't need to be a doomsday prepper. You don't need to dig a bunker in your backyard or hoard 500 cans of beans. That is panic. I don't want you to panic. I want you to prepare. Real safety isn't about hoping for the best. It is about understanding that different assets react differently to chaos. Most people think they are safe because they own stocks in 2 different American companies. That isn't diversification. If the dollar collapses, both of those companies go down. That is like being on the Titanic and switching from a seat in the dining room to a seat in the lounge. You are still on the sinking ship. True diversification means owning things that don't care who the president is. Gold doesn't need a Federal Reserve. A farm doesn't need a functioning bank to grow corn. Foreign currencies don't care about U.S. debt. These assets are your lifeboats. The warning lights are flashing. You saw them in Turkey. You saw them in Lebanon. Now you are seeing them here. The autopsy is clear. The patient is terminal. But knowing what to buy is only half the equation. You also need to know when the final crack will happen. There is a specific trigger event that has happened right before every major depression in the last 100 years. It happened in 1929. It happened in 2008. And the charts indicate it is setting up to happen again in the next 6 months. I broke down exactly what this signal looks like in this video right here. It is the single most important chart in modern finance, and the mainstream news is ignoring it completely. Click here to see the trigger before it gets pulled. I'll see you there.